it's a if I were living like a pure or like a perfect life or whatever, I wouldn't look at that at all. But the reality is I am flawed, so I will always look at that. But I just want to be mindful of it, kind of like waste of products that you use and all the packaging and all that bullshit that you have to just kind of go through and all the waste involved there. And yeah, right, boxes. All this is boxes underneath here. But if you're just, or this goes with like eating meat or whatever, but like just being aware of what things, like the process of how things get to you. You don't have to totally avoid it or hate it forever, but just be aware of the process, at least somewhat.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been trying to be mindful of stuff like that. I saw there was like a really interesting piece recently that I guess they did an experiment, like scientists, like researchers at some university did an experiment where they asked people to be mindful when they're smoking cigarettes, and apparently that was more successful in getting them to quit than traditional methods of getting people to quit. Like basically just telling them like really think about when you're smoking. A lot of them were like, you know what, cigarettes don't actually taste good, and they actually like thought through like, you know what, and so a lot more of them quit. Yep. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I wonder if that would translate where it's like just be mindful when you're beating off. It's just like, all right, think about how weird you look.
Because you like, why are you doing it? Like, what is causing you to do it?
Yeah, or like
I know
mindful.
in my case, like,
go ahead.
That's like, I know in my case, I'm the kind of person who's like mindful of as much as I can be. Mm-hmm. It's like I'm aware of why I do certain things. I know why I do that, but you're kind of right because like one of the things, what's her name? Natalie Portman did a Hot Ones episode, and at the end of the episode, they were like, "Oh, what do you want to like tell the people?" And she was like, "Just like try to be." She's basically like try to be vegan like once a week, but like don't force yourself to do it. Like if you really want to eat bacon or whatever, then eat bacon, but try to like cut other things out. Yeah, and that's kind of like stuck with me of like you don't have to do it 100%. Just be aware of as much as you can be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, or like a meatless Monday or whatever, just to cut back. I mean, that's just true for anything. Like the whole moderation, or things are fine in moderation, whatever. It's really just a way of enforcing moderation. If you're super aware of what you're doing, you're going to be, unless you're like addicted to it or you have a problem, whatever, then you're going to think like, maybe I shouldn't have eaten 2 large pizzas last night. Like the whole mindful eating thing. It's the same kind of a thing. Like if you just think about how gross it is to do some of the things that you do, not you specifically, but I mean, you are pretty gross, but just people in general.
Listen, one of us recently ate half a dozen Red Lobster cheese biscuits, and I don't think it was you.
Nice. Did you actually go to Red Lobster, or did you?
I ordered.
We had to go to a restaurant. Did I tell you that we ate at a restaurant like a month ago?
What?
Dude, It was crazy. We had to go look for caterers for the wedding because we're like getting married apparently or something like that in a few months. So we had to pick a person for food. And there's a venue, and we did like a little sample thing or whatever of what they had. And we had to go meet them physically in the restaurant to like have, a whole meeting or whatever about it. And then we ate there on their outdoor patio. And it was weird as fuck. Like being outside and not having the mask on and just, you know what I mean? Just feeling like it was kind of normal. It was super crazy.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Bruh.
Yeah.
I'd be so anxious to do that.
It was super weird. I mean, because it was kind of dead. So we went, I think, at like 4:30 on a weekday. We left work an hour early or something like that. So it wasn't super packed, but I don't think they would be super packed otherwise because I think a lot of people are, skeptical.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, it was great. And like everything tasted 100 times better because you can DoorDash whatever, but it's going to suck ass when it gets to your house. Most likely it's going to be like steamed on the inside because it's been sitting in a container in a bag like 40 minutes or whatever.
Yep.
So it was great. I miss restaurants. That's the one restaurant I've been to. Probably the only restaurant. Well, whatever. Probably in the next few months, I'll go to a restaurant again,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But if you're doing it under obligation, you're not just like, you know what, Synovia? Fuck it. Let's go to Arby's and sit down.
That's the worst. You're gonna blow it on an Arby's.
Just get a mountain of meat. Whatever. What's the sandwich called? A meat mountain.
It used to be a Big Montana, but now I think it's just like a large roast beef sandwich.
No, they have one with like every kind of meat they have.
Do they? I don't know. I don't know what's going on in Arby's lately.
We used to work close to one, and when I was not at the office, or if I brought lunch and my other friends were going to lunch, they'd go to Arby's because there's nothing for me to eat there. And they would come back and get the meat sweats.
Do you know that for sure, though, that if Arby's meat is real meat?
I have no idea.
Because if it weren't, you could totally eat that, right? Unless it wasn't, like, if it wasn't gelatin or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. Part of the whole, like, restricting myself thing really comes down to, like, a self-control thing where you're, like, people all the time tell me, like, oh, you could eat a Taco Bell. The meat's not even real. But it's like, I could, but, I mean, I'm not losing anything by not eating at Taco Bell. Like, I'm not losing anything by not eating at Arby's, you know?
I mean, you're missing the experience of eating at Arby's. It's just you're choosing that it's not worth it. The kind of purity.
I could eat something else that's arguably better for me.
Yeah, I know. I'm just so like, you know, the Heart Attack Grill.
Yeah, in Vegas.
There's another one too, I think, or there used to be maybe. I don't know, but yes, that is the one where they have the scale out front, and if you weigh over 350, you can eat there for free. Like, I could go there and I can eat their lard fried fries and their butterfat milkshakes, whatever the hell, and I'm sure it'd be great. But I choose not to because I like having that as like a purity source for me. Be like, well, I've never eaten at the Heart Attack Grill. It's like, yeah, I got the double deluxe grand slam at Denny's. I almost had a heart attack that night, but whatever, you know. It's like that with Taco Bell for you.
Yeah, I mean, also it's like if it is real meat, by not eating at, you know, like restaurants all the time, it cuts my meat consumption down significantly compared to your average person, right? Like, even just the fact that I eat at McDonald's, but I only eat fish fillets at McDonald's, cuts down on my meat consumption compared to the regular McDonald's person. Yeah. So in a way, I'm better for the environment than your regular fast food consumer.
Yeah. Sure, if you want to make yourself feel like a better person, then yeah.
No, I'm joking about that mostly. I mean, really, it's just a choice at this point to just not.
Have you ever seen the video of like how to make a chicken sandwich from scratch?
No.
Or how to make X is some food items from scratch. So the one I remember was chicken sandwich, and it was this total cost of the entire process, right? I have to get a farm and get wheat so I can make the bread. I need to farm chicken so I can make the chicken and all this kind of stuff. And it was basically the cost of creating that one sandwich for yourself, and it was like $6,300. Right, but that's obviously like the startup cost. The second chicken sandwich costs much less than that, and so overall your cost per chicken sandwich goes down. That's the whole thing. But it was just this thing of showing from scratch, true scratch, how to make a chicken sandwich. And in the end, he was kind of like, yeah, it's fine, it tastes fine. But in a perfect world, I would live like that. I would have like a farm with my own stuff, and know the animals that I'm killing, and kind of be, like I said, mindful in that way, like just being aware of where your food comes from, and like farm vegetables and like own all the land to do it. That would be super rad, you know? But we have an oregano garden, and that's step one.
I don't know. I used to think it would be kind of cool to be like, not off the grid, but to be like completely independent. But I've kind of changed my philosophy on that.
You want to be dependent? You want to be dependent?
Not to be dependent, but to like function in a society where I don't have to be that general. Like, I don't need to farm chickens and wheat and bake and cook chicken, and like I don't need to do like all that stuff. I can do what I want to do. Like, I can have hobbies that don't necessarily like impact my ability to survive.
Yeah, I guess maybe not living like that, as in living completely off of my own effort and stuff. I mean, like withdrawing from society in that way, that's not really what I mean. But knowing how to if I had to. Because I'm definitely, like, this year more than anything made me a prepper, but we talked about it before than this year. Like, I've been a prepper. I want to know at least how to do something like grow my own food, how things work on a basic level like that. I was listening to a podcast the other day where someone was like, wouldn't it be interesting, or how kind of messed up is it if we went back in time to kind of tell people about the wonders of today's technology? Like, we have the internet, like we have Twitter, and they'd probably ask us how it works, and we have no fucking idea. It's like, oh, we have cars. It's like, how do they work? Oh, we have no idea. Like, we have them, though, in my time. I can't help you at all, you know? And it's like, I just want to know how things that I use work. A big gap for me is how my car works, you know?
Oh, I see. I that makes more sense. I thought you were saying you want to live off the grid, like buy a plot of land in Alaska and build your own house. And
some part of me wants to do that. I think we talked about this before, but I feel like I don't have the kind of manly traits that I feel like I should have. Like my nana's house, my tata built an entire room attached to that house. Like my tata just made that. He's like, oh, we have this house and we have this part of the land here that doesn't have a house. I'm going to build out more house. I'm just a man. It's like, I want to be able to do that kind of shit. So yeah, for sure, part of me wants to learn how to do that.
Bro, you are a unique person, maybe. I do not want to do stuff like that. Like, I want to call a plumber. I don't want to do my own plumbing. I want to call an electrician. I don't want to do my own electric work.
But part of it... Okay, so I guess to ask you, like, you know programming. You know what it takes generally to build a website. You know what it takes to build up a server and how services run and stuff like that. And what it's like to maintain that stuff. So if you said, okay, like an example, I'll just take a moment to shit on Wix. Your mom had that website that was running on Wix, and I went off for like a really long time about how much I hated Wix. But basically the whole thing is they limit what you can do, and they charge you probably too much for it. And in some way, that's to a much lesser extent, but in some way, it's like an auto mechanic charging you 10 times what they should just because they know that you don't know anything about what they're doing, and they're able to fuck you over. I think just having the knowledge of like, no, that's my air filter doesn't look like that. You know, that's super valuable. The same way that knowing a website doesn't cost $12,000 a year to just run, you know, on one page or whatever.
Yeah, that is true. Like knowing stuff like that. I guess, I don't know though, man. Like knowing how to do plumbing, I still don't really know if I want to do that. I guess for me, like my interests are elsewhere. And so for me, I'm like always searching out and trying to go after my interests as opposed to like, maybe I seek novelty more than functionality in my life, or practicality. Novelty over practicality.
I get that. I guess for me, I think that the world is very crazy, and we have a lot of luxuries today, like the fact that I don't have to worry about a lot about how things just kind of happen for me in my life. Like, oh, I put the trash on the street, and then trash man comes and trash goes away. These things are really nice, but I guess I don't trust that it'll always be here. Like, I'm very weird about the world ending just because I'm like a crazy person, you know what I mean? But if you think about what's happened in the past 50 years of the world, how much history has happened in the past 50 years, and realistically I have about 50 years left in my life, and how much could change in that time. I don't know if my trash man was still going to be picking up my trash in 50 years, or if we're going to live in a hellscape and everything is on fire all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I guess on my side of things, I tend to just... I think for me, it's like people are people, and we'll always find a way forward if we can. Like, basically, as long as there is a possibility for people to survive, people will find a way to survive. We're quite good at it historically, so...
Yes, but if there were 10 people left in your little survival group, and let's say for the sake of the argument, those are the last 10 people that realistically you're going to find in your entire kind of journey, you want those 10 people to know things. If they're all like, oh yeah, I don't know how plumbing works, I don't know how electricity works, I don't know how computers work, I don't know how cars work, it's like, well, you know, we'll eat you or whatever. Like, you need to know things.
I mean, I guess, but the other side of that too is like, there's no way that few people could maintain the infrastructure required to keep everything running. Like, it requires more than 10 people to keep a city's plumbing working. It requires more than 10 people to keep a city's electric work running. Like, if we're in a scenario where there's that few people, we'd probably have to give up running water, and we'd probably have to give up electricity. We'd probably have to give up cars eventually because no one can refine oil.
Yeah, 10.
Or like, even if you know how to refine oil, do we have the means to find where oil would be located, to get it out of the ground, to put it in a thingy, to refine it, then to use it? Like, even if you know all those things, like that's too much. It's like what you were saying about like the startup cost, like the initial one of those, the cost of that's way too high. We have to invest too many resources into any one thing. So like, if we're down to 10 people, it's already failed. That's not like a
10 was just a number I picked, but the point is that any number of people, you need somewhere to start that's not at square zero. If it's like, well, I've used a toilet before, that's basically your starting point for how to build an entire plumbing system, that and maybe like a SimCity or something like that. But you want to have someone who does have that expertise to be able to train people who maybe don't know. In a perfect world, there's people who don't know things and they can be like laborers. You know what I mean? I don't know, whatever. I'm just saying, you need people who know things if you wanted to start things back up from nothing.
Yeah, I guess you wouldn't. Okay, so hold on. So I think that if we were in a scenario where, like, you know, everything is broken, we're like living a hellscape.
Yeah.
You probably won't be able to restart in your generation anyway. You probably won't be able to restart civilization. I think really, like, realistically, the initial cost is too high. There's too many demands on your group. You have to maintain food levels. You have to maintain health. You have to you have to like move. You have to become nomadic again, likely, because there's not enough food in the cities. So you'd have to abandon the cities. You probably wouldn't go, okay, well, you know, the system failed, let's rebuild the whole thing. It's like, okay, well, that didn't work, and we need to, like, you don't need to start from scratch, because, you know, like, everyone has some knowledge on stuff, but, like, you probably wouldn't immediately go back into trying to set that up, right? You'd probably have to, you know, set up food locations, find running water, be able to, but would it be ahead of the people of the past just knowing, like, oh, you can't just drink water out of a stream. That's a really good way of catching diseases.
How do you have to
purify that water.
How do you know that?
I know that.
Right.
I mean,
but how do you spread that information in your new society? How do you maintain that information?
Because everyone is from this current society, right? If I tell you, hey, bud, like, you know, like, everything's on fire. You and I are like part of the survival group, and I'm like, oh, hey, like, I've been an outdoors person for a while now. Like, I know you're not supposed to drink water just straight up. We need to purify it, either by boiling it or iodine. That's pretty good base information to keep people moving.
I guess my general point is that you wouldn't necessarily be concerned with restarting society. It's like you said, you know, people always find a way. Like, there's different waves of, like, extinction in history and coming back out of whatever, that whole thing. But I guess just thinking about, and this kind of goes back to our episode 0, where I was talking about preservation of YouTube videos. Kind of talk about that stuff a lot. But think of how much information we've recorded just to kind of help others grow. Like, everything I know from programming is basically me Googling stuff over the past, 8 years or so, and maybe a little bit of college info in there too. But we've documented so much of things that have gotten us this far, and we need some way to preserve that. If the world were to end, it'd be a real shame if we also lost all of the information that we had as a society, because this is, as far as we know it, this is the peak. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I guess, like, generationally speaking, unless somebody does know everything, you're going to lose stuff. And
yeah.
And the other side of it too is, like, I think it's fine to not know, or I think it's fine to lose I think it's fine to lose information. I think it's nice that we know as much as we do now. And, like, in theory, I can tell somebody, like, if, like, say, like, you know, it's a hellscape, I'm part of the generation that survived the hellscape, next generation comes around, do I tell them about gravity? Do I sit them down and explain to them, like, the physics involved and, like, why you go down towards the earth?
Yes.
Probably. Do I know enough to be able to, like, prove gravity? No. best I can do is basically tell them a myth that like it'd be like the old myth stories from like ancient Greece, and be like, there is a great power that pulls you down towards the center of the earth. By the way, the earth is a sphere.
Yeah, that's true. The whole like we should preserve information. We could lose some information. I'm okay with losing things like the conversation I had before that we hit record on this, because I understand that it's like a limitation of the medium, which is me just speaking, and sometimes people don't hear it, and that's okay. That information's lost. We're never gonna 50 years from now, no one will know that happened. That's okay. But on YouTube specifically, that original thing, you also made the claim that basically some information is okay to lose, and then someone has to make a determination on what's important enough to keep. That's when I don't like it. I think if it was stored in the first place, you have every like you have a responsibility to maintain that thing. You know what I mean? Like if you record a thing, no one should ever come back and say, this is not suitable for preservation in a way, and this is not like so like book burning is bad because you get rid of information, you stop ideas from spreading. And if someone is making a decision that some information should not be maintained, it is the same kind of a mentality behind it, of getting rid of information because it shouldn't be consumed, you know.
I think my argument when we were talking about the YouTube thing was a resource scarcity issue, where if we had to pick between storing something and just getting rid of what we had, it's probably better to just get rid of what we had.
But then someone has to decide if that information is good. Like, what if you go to the video of the dude cracking the Zodiac killer code? Someone's like, I don't even know what this is. I'm going to delete this. But it's like actually historically significant. Versus a video of the Homegames podcast. You could probably delete that one. You know what I mean? But
No,
someone's making that decision.
Yeah. I mean, yes. And I think that's okay.
No. No one should make that decision.
If nobody remembers who the Zodiac killer is, it's okay to lose that information. Or if we don't need to, we don't need to know the Zodiac killer's, like, the process on cracking the code. What we need to know is that there was a Zodiac killer. He killed people. He left a code, and we cracked it. Because that tells any other killer that, like, we'll figure it out eventually. But it also tells the people, like, we can do some impressive stuff and also some terrible stuff. And it's just, I think, like, that's the end result.
Yeah,
the actual, like, act of doing it is somewhat irrelevant.
But that's your view of it. You know what I mean? Like, what's the right way to do it? Who decides ultimately if that's even the right way to do it? You know what I mean? It's like, I think you're doing the thing where you're saying, oh, I think we should have this kind of information about it and not this kind of information about it. And the whole YouTube thing was realistically the stuff that we're uploading in 10 years is much larger than what we're uploading now. So realistically, it's not a good idea to look back at the stuff we're uploading now. I don't know. I don't think anybody should be in that position. At a certain point, it's like, okay, well, write it down, you know, on hemp paper, something sustainable, something cool. But preservation of history is important, if not for people, like as a greater thing, but just for families or whatever. It's like, hey, what was that like? It's like, I don't fucking know. It's like, that's a bummer.
I'm kind of okay with that though. Like,
I don't like that.
I think it's okay to lose stuff. I think it's okay for people to make decisions, and if the choice is a tough one, like we don't have enough memory, we need to either take the resources from something else to store more YouTube videos, or just delete YouTube videos. I'd rather just delete YouTube videos and have those resources go to something else.
But then are you there determining, okay, well, Yazeed wants to upload a 16K video of him farting for 6 minutes. And this is going to take up, you know, probably about 3 petabytes of data. We're going to go and we're going to determine that Yazeed farting in 16K in 2030 is more important than someone, you know, doing whatever, showing you how to pick a lock in 2020. Someone has to make that decision. Someone has to gatekeep the new uploads. And then at that point, it's like, fuck YouTube. I'm just going to go write this down on hemp paper. Because if I'm concerned about preservation, I mean, I think that your fart video is artistic and should be seen by millions. But I don't know if the gatekeeper at that point is going to agree.
I mean, yeah, I guess that's true. It's a difficult position for me to argue from. I think because I don't. The scenario that I'm talking about here is if we basically ran out of the ability to create memory, or creating memory is restrictively expensive. Creating more memory is restrictively expensive.
Yeah, we talked about that.
If that's true, then there has to be some restrictions. That's basically saying if let's say oxygen let's take away the storage thing, right? Let's say oxygen was a difficult resource to find on Earth, right? Like O2, the one that we breathe, is very difficult to get on Earth. You would have to ration it so that the people who live on Earth survive. You can't just be like, either they'll have it or they won't.
Or someone gets it all and then sells it at a premium. You get oxygen scalpers.
Yeah, I think either of those options aren't really acceptable, right? And I think the same thing with, in this case, memory. If memory is restrictively expensive for a company like Google or YouTube, whatever, they need to be able to restrict stuff that they're going to be storing, because it's costing them quite a bit of money to add more storage. They can't just add more storage. They have to either they have to remove old stuff and fill the new stuff and then just like keep doing that cycle and maintaining it, hopefully, or they just restrict the incoming stuff so that it's valuable. And I don't think there's a third option of, well, they just store it anyway because it's too expensive for them to store, like to get enough storage to store it all. And the option of somebody else can store it, that is a reliable option, but it might be prohibitive because the cost of storage is too high for a corporation. I think it'd be too high for an individual as well at that point.
Well, so there's two parts to that. One, if memory were actually prohibitively expensive to get, or you're talking about storage, but yes,
yeah.
Storage were prohibitively expensive. So much of the world runs on this stuff that running out of storage would be like catastrophic for the world. It'd be like Y2K but real. Basically, it's like, oh, I can't log into my bank. They can't store logs. Yeah. So that would be really bad. But even outside of that whole thing, YouTube has the ability today to restrict what you can put on it, as they should, because they're a private corporation and they have computers that they run shit on, and they have a choice of what they don't run that on. Like they can say, hey, no illegal shit. Hey, no other people's music that doesn't belong to you. And the reason for that is because we want to protect our ass for copyright stuff, because we need to remain a profitable business. Like that goes at a certain point, that goes against any kind of idea that says that you could even upload a 4K or a 16K video of you farting, unless there was like a crazy demand for that kind of stuff, in which case just put me down, please. But if there were a thing,
put you down to make the video, or put you down in general?
Executive producer on that. It's gonna be a hit. No, but yeah, I think if you have this kind of a thing where we need to make a profit off of the video that you upload, then someone has to be the gatekeeper to say, is this profitable or not? So like, I don't know if YouTube is going to be really a cool thing in 5-10 years. I have no idea personally. This is a home games thing, kind of, not really, but we can kind of use the same technology. I was thinking about this like a week ago, because you see people on YouTube complaining more and more that their stuff can't be viewed or accessed or whatever. People complaining about the system, right? And then being aware of the system being so big that you can't really escape it. But wouldn't it be cool if you made it so someone could basically host their YouTube videos themselves? And it's like, okay, well, youtube.com or, tutube.com is just kind of this homepage or whatever, but then tutube.com/Yazeed just directs to kind of Yazeed's cluster, and then you manage that shit. It's not on our server, so if you have illegal shit, that's on you, buddy. But like having this kind of a weird like pirate system of YouTube where everybody's just running shit themselves and it's really sketchy. I feel like we should, like, that would be a really cool thing. You know what I mean?
I like the theory behind it. I think that the execution behind it is basically there's going to be a shit ton of malware and there's not much we could do about it.
Yes. Yes, but that's That's kind of the beauty. So I guess there was this thing. There was this thing I saw where like the internet basically as it was 15 years ago doesn't really exist. I mean, you have to get into some weird shit if you want to find the internet where you can truly kind of not have a Facebook like button somewhere on the web page that you're on, right? And like be able to actually just post random shit. There are very few spaces online where you can really do that, and a lot of it is very corporate. Like the kind of I don't know, corporatization of the internet and kind of ruining a lot of the cool, fun spirit that used to be there. So yeah, man, fuck it, malware. Like bring it back to like LimeWire stuff where it's like, oh, I got the new Big Timers album, and oh shit, it's an EXE, you know? It created like culture, like we talked about before, like a cultural experience of kind of like dealing with the internet when it wasn't super pretty and nice and easy to navigate, you know? The 7 download buttons and they're all viruses, that whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think the theory behind it's really cool. I think the practicality of it is going to be like regular, boring people aren't going to use it because the risk of getting malware will be too high.
But I think that's the thing. I mean, I would argue that Homegames is essentially that same thing, you know, but to a less open extent because it's code and it's not so easy to just do whatever.
I mean, also, if somebody was going to host it on the Homegames repo, you and I would review it first. So if they somehow got malware in there,
yeah,
you and or me were going to get infected and then reject that pull request.
Yeah, and
maybe ban that user from opening pull requests.
Maybe.
Depending on how pissed off I am and what they do to my build.
Yeah. I don't know. The whole thing is that we're essentially doing that right now. It's this thing of normal people won't use this because they have to download a GitHub repo. 2 GitHub repos? Install Node? You know what I mean? Like these are things that already are those barriers that people have. And so normal people aren't going to do it. And it's like, a local area, what? That whole thing, like we've already lost people. It has to be just like one sentence. Otherwise, normal people aren't going to be on your shit, and you can't make weirdo internet pirate YouTube a normal people thing.
Yeah, listen, that is true, and it would be hilarious, and I think it would be funny if like big content creators started to move to it, because that would be hilarious. But also, like, I think in 10 years, for example, more people are going to know what LAN stands for. I think people have to become more educated on like technology stuff just to be a human being in modern era, basically.
See, I would say
I don't think there's I think there's less of an option to not be educated on how technology is. You don't need to be a developer, but you probably need to know like what a network is, how to connect to Wi-Fi, what Wi-Fi is, what's a LAN network. Like probably those things will become like part of the like base understanding for people. Kind of like, you know, when we were growing up, like how to cross the street was like pretty basic information that everyone either knew or was taught via television or humans.
Yeah, but the technology is more prevalent in kids today than it ever has been before, but I would argue they have to know less than they ever did to access any of that technology. Like to get on Nick.com in 1999, I had to do things on the computer that like kids today don't have to do. You had to wait for the AOL dial-up thing to complete and hear the thing. Like there's a process and you have to learn that process just to get onto the website where I can go play the SpongeBob game. Whereas now my cousin picks up an iPad and everything is an app. You just tap it and everything is super easy. He is using technology more to a greater extent and probably longer in his normal day, but he doesn't know anything about it. I didn't know anything about it back then, but I probably knew more about something. That there was the internet outside of, because like Wi-Fi is this abstraction on top of your thing, because it's like, oh yeah, I'm connected to my local network, like I'm talking to a router. That doesn't mean internet. Kids don't know that. Like they just know Wi-Fi as a general concept. You see what I'm saying? Like there's like an abstraction to technology that kids have today.
Yeah, but I think because more people are aware of it, when they're also much more available in their resources to learn about it, if they were like, oh, what is Wi-Fi? They could just Google search it, and we couldn't really. That wasn't really like any like centralized source of information like that. I think Wikipedia was there, but I mean, it was a different world to get to Wikipedia when we were their age, you know?
Yeah, but even Wi-Fi is full of terms that unless you know what they mean, you won't understand actually what Wi-Fi is. It's like the same way that I drive a car. I know nothing about the car. I know that I need an oil change. I don't know what that is. You know what I mean? Like, just because I know the words doesn't mean I actually know anything about what I'm doing. And just because it's very common to know those words, like, doesn't mean you know what you're saying at all.
I guess that is true, but I think because they're more familiar with the terms, it'd be more familiar with what home games is.
You know what I mean? Are you saying that home games is going to change the game so much that every baby is going to be born knowing what a local network is? The first words are going to be...
I think more kids know what a local network is than when we were kids. And I also think more kids would be like, oh, local like LAN. I know what that is. I see it all the time on like other stuff. You don't think so?
No, dude. No. People might have heard
I don't
LAN.
know enough children to build up for like a survey.
Yeah, I only know 2 children, but I guarantee neither of them know what a LAN is. I guarantee no one, like none of my younger cousins know what a LAN is.
Okay, are you saying they verbally wouldn't know what a LAN is, or if they saw the capital AL, the capital A, the capital N, they wouldn't be like, that I've seen before somewhere. I don't remember where, but I've seen it before on like the iPad or something like that.
All of them.
Because there's like a certain like seeing that it's like, yes, that thing. I know.
For
I know
you,
that thing,
they don't have that. I would bet money that none of them know what that is at all, capitalized and in text or whatever. Because what do you really have to do on a LAN besides, 20 years ago people had LAN parties with video games and that was the thing. But LAN isn't really a thing anymore. It's Wi-Fi to the internet, and then I get on Instagram, and then I get on YouTube.
Interesting. I don't know. Okay, hold on. So let's say before 5% of people knew what LAN is. Yes?
Okay, sure.
Okay. Even if now 4% of people knew what LAN is,
It's
there's
a
so many
greater
more
absolute
people.
number. Yeah.
More people, yeah. But also, I still stand behind because it's so much easier to access information than it was back then. Like, it would be easier for them to figure out what all of this meant.
Yeah, but I guess then the question...
If they wanted to.
Yes, the question there becomes how many people want to. Because I would argue the same thing for me. It was probably easier for me to become a programmer than it would have been if I had grown up 10 years earlier, 10 years before that. The way that Dr. Homer... he's a doctor, right?
Yeah.
Dr. Homer talked about... the kind of just programming in the 60s and 70s or whatever, and how crazy that is, and the kind of barrier to entry there. Whereas now, yes, I would agree. You can get like a piece of shit Android phone for... Oh, what? I can't hear you.
Nothing. I just said Dr. Homer quietly to try to remember if that's actually what I used to call him or not.
Yeah, I don't know if it's Professor Homer or Dr. Homer. But anyway,
I don't remember what I called him either, and he was like, I was a TA for him.
Yeah.
I worked with him directly. I think it's Dr. Homer.
Yeah, I think it's Dr. Homer. But yes.
It's Dr. McCann, Dr. Homer, Dr. Probsting.
Yeah, Dr. Everybody.
Dr. Everybody.
But yeah, there's more computers, and it's easier to get one now. So it is easier to learn about things. You can ask Siri what Wi-Fi is, and she'll probably tell you a little bit. That's pretty cool.
Yes. I don't know. It's kind of weird to try to predict stuff like that. Like, I don't think I'm the right person for doing that. You'd need to run surveys and then do statistical analysis on if more people know now than then.
I don't think it's...
Interestingly, if one of us became an elementary school teacher, it'd be the perfect place to run a survey like that.
Well, the surveys are kind of useless because you never really get accurate whatever. But...
What?
You can't be truly accurate if you're working at elementary school. I mean,
if you are trying to figure out if more kids know what LAN is,
yeah,
then you teaching at elementary school is the best place to find that out.
I'm sure it's very regional too. I mean, if you ask at an elementary school in the Bay Area where a bunch of kids have technical stuff and their parents are probably working in tech, versus somewhere in like rural Kentucky, they probably don't have it as much. So that's what I'm saying. The survey is kind of whatever. But
I see what you mean. So we need to have a bunch of elementary school teachers do this survey.
we need to get every elementary school teacher, and then also you got to get the homeschool crowd because they're
We leave those ones to it. They don't know what survey means.
the homeschool crowd, and got to have some sort of public school, private school cooperation here to make everything work, and it's just going to be a big mess, only to find out that probably more kids know what land is.
Absolute number I can almost guarantee, just because there's more people and likely that percentage is similar. I think that would be my guess.
That's the beauty, though. I mean, people argue that that's a bad thing. People like to shit on that Apple commercial, the "What is a computer?" I don't even think I've seen it, but I think it's like a little girl or a little kid, and they're on an iPad, and someone references a computer, and then they're like, "What's a computer?" And the whole thing is like, right? People shit on that because it's like, that's a computer, you idiot, you're using technology, fucking normies, whatever, all that stuff. But the reality, the beauty of technology is that people don't have to know anything to use them. Like, they don't have to be aware of how complex everything is because no one fucking cares. Like, we were watching an Instagram Live the other day. I'll talk about this during my Song of the Week, but we were watching an Instagram Live, and there were 250,000 people watching a live stream that was just coming off of someone's phone. And you think about like, oh wow, it's actually not possible for 250,000 phones to get their data from this phone at one time. So they must be doing some weird technical thing where they're like putting the stream out somewhere and then like duplicating it across a bunch of different, locations and all this whatever crazy stuff. And it's like, holy shit, that's really, really amazing. Like the technology behind this is really amazing, and Facebook is doing some crazy shit. This is super impressive. But at the end of the day, there's 250,000 people watching this, and most of them probably don't give a fuck about how it's working, and that's fine. They don't have to, and that's great. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And I agree. I would rather fewer people have to care than more people have to care.
And it makes your value as someone who knows higher because then the pool is small.
Bro, listen, I'll tell you. Okay, in Cyberpunk, I never Cyberpunk in a way has excited me to be a developer in a way that being a developer never excited me to be a developer. There's like a mysticism in that game, like in that universe, about somebody who understands like how to net run, basically just like use the terminal. Mm-hmm. And I think on it, it's like, I'm basically a modern day net runner. I'm a shitty one, but I'm actually technically one.
Like the way that we looked at that guy, I think it was in our physics class, where he had a terminal up the entire class all the time. We were like, oh man, I want to write code in a terminal one day. That sounds cool as fuck. Remember?
Oh no, that was the guy who took notes in Vim in our programming class.
I don't know if he was taking notes in Vim. I think he was working on CS stuff in another class that we were in. That was.
Oh, you're right. In the physics class. Yeah, the dude who sat right in front of us in the very back and was just like, "Yeah, I'm doing whatever."
Yeah, if you have a terminal up full screen, like you're doing some hardcore shit.
I never open my terminals up full screen.
I live there. That's where I stay all day. I watch YouTube videos with curl,
No, you do not. Don't lie to me.
I read the bytes, dude. I get the vibe from the bytes. I don't know what it looks like.
This man gets the vibe from the bytes, he says. Damn it. If that was in the podcast, that's a great name for the podcast, Vibes from the Bytes.
It's all right. All the true hardcore home gamers, the home gang will know. I was also thinking, just because I'm like a petty asshole, I was thinking one day, what if we have like a substantial fan base and then we make a move that a lot of people don't like? And then we get a lot of fan backlash, and it's like, man, I've been a fan since day one. Anybody who says that, I could come back and be like, bitch, no one's been a fan since day one.
Only this guy, and you just point over at me, was a fan since day one. You're like, I wasn't even a fan since day one.
Show you the 0 views on our stats.
I hope ideally we never have to make a tough decision like that.
No, ideally.
Because one of the two of us has to do community outreach, and listen, no offense to you.
I'm not a good
community
guy.
I don't think it should be you. And no offense to me, but I don't think it should be me either.
Yeah, I don't know. I have too short of a temper to be put in any sort of like direct to consumer thing.
And I'm too uncomfortable around people to do that. So we're a really bad combination for
we shouldn't be doing
front end.
We shouldn't be out in public at all.
No. No, in some ways the quarantine has helped with that. In other ways, it's made it worse.
We got our. I told you we got our listener or our podcast stats from Spotify, our wrap up stuff, and it told us the number of the number of hours of content that we've recorded and uploaded, and it was like 200 and something or something crazy like that. And I was thinking, damn, I guess just like that's a lot of fucking time that we spent just recording. That doesn't count editing or uploading or thinking of what to call it or whatever. I don't even know why I'm talking about this. I just thought it was super crazy. Like the amount of content that we uploaded that, like, for the most part, like, hasn't actually been heard on Spotify. Because we have listeners and stuff, but they're spread out across so many different podcast
Episodes?
apps. Yeah. That most of our Spotify stuff is like, fucking no one's here. It's like it just plays the tumbleweed sound, tumbleweed.mp3.
That's kind of the ultimate flame. Listen, I'm just proud of us that we made it through the Patch Notes era, where it was like a bunch of podcasts named Patch Notes start and then die, and we made it through that and rebranded successfully. We moved all 0 of our people over.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I don't know. This is like, I guess, kind of a year wrap up thing, but this is very hard. Like doing this every week is very time consuming and super hard to stay with, I guess. But I'm happy that we got through just the year. But yes, past up the Patch Notes phase in general, sure. But yeah, we're still doing this every week. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Some weeks are easier than others, I will say.
Yeah, it was, life is hard. sometimes I'll be listening to Kid Cudi, and then a line will hit in a way I wasn't expecting it to hit, and then kind of like how last week I was like waiting for it to make me depressed or save me from depression. It's like, oh, I'm feeling something. I didn't think I was feeling like this. And then you get on the podcast, you're just like, hey, you ever think about how fuck life? You know what I mean? Anyway, let's talk about home game stuff. It's all right. Everything's great.
Mate, where do you think you'll be in 10 years?
Like physically located or mentally or career-wise or what?
Answer that question however you want to.
I hope I have at least, in 10 years, I hope I have at least 2 kids. I want to have built something that I think is impressive. Basically, like when I'm 36, which is in 10 years, I will no longer feel like I have the ability to exert myself to the extent that I can today, or spend as much time doing things outside of like my life and stuff. You know what I mean? Like working on home games, I would say, is one of them. Like when I'm 36, I can't work on home games for 15 hours a week because I have like kids and a family and responsibilities outside of just fucking around on the internet. So I hope I will have finished something that I can say I'm like proud of instead of regretting not spending that time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I want to have more sneakers.
So 2 kids, something you're proud of, and more sneakers. I can guarantee you will get shoes over these next 10 years. Most shoes don't last 10 years.
Oh, I'm trying to keep some of mine for 10 years.
Oh, no, I mean like if you wear them.
Oh, yeah, no, I don't wear those shits. Yeah, what makes you ask that question? And then also the same for you.
I don't know. I was thinking about it this weekend while I was here. Like, I'm 27 now.
Yeah.
In 3 more years, I'll be 30.
Yeah.
And then, like, 33 more years after, or 23 more years after that. 33 more years after that, maybe I'll be dead. It's kind of like, where do I want to be in 10 years?
So you sent me that text and you were just like, I thought you were joking. I was waiting for the punchline where you were like, yeah, I think 65 is probably a good time to die. And I was like,
no, it's just a true statement. No, I think like 60 is a good age to go. I don't really want to make it past 60.
Why?
I want to make it to 60. But then I think I've done it at that point.
The number is totally arbitrary though, because you could break both your legs and throw out your back forever, whatever. When you're 45, doesn't mean that it's like, oh well, I'm not 60. I could still go do shit. It's like, no, dude, you're basically done.
I mean, that is true, but I think if I'm a regular healthy person at 60, then I've fallen so far below my physical peak and mental peak that there's no more up. There's just down.
There's more to
want to live through down.
There's more to life than just having physical and mental peak. It's like, yeah, I can't run 30 miles anymore, but I wake up every day content. Like I saw my grandson smiling. That was pretty fucking cool. Those are the experiences that you have when you're old, and that shit sounds amazing.
That's true. Okay, all right. Listen, here's my legitimate 100% serious Yazeed explanation on this. If you have kids when you're around 30, when you're around 60, they're around 30.
Math checks out.
I think at that point, either they're good and stable or they're not. And if they're good and stable, they don't need me anymore. And if they're not, I don't want them anymore. So I think that's a good time to go.
Yes, but when your kids are 30, then it's exactly what I said, where it's like, okay, well, my kids are 30. Then if they have kids when they are 30, then I'm gonna have grandkids. But it's like, hey, Papa Yazeed, you're gonna be a granddad, and you're just like, oh, cool. Well, I'm gonna go jump off this bridge because I just hit 60 actually, so it's my time. It's like you probably want to stick around for the rest of your life, and yeah, once you start to kind of not be there anymore, then yeah, I totally get being like, all right, I'll take, just check me out or whatever. But I feel like 60 is pretty young still.
I don't know. I don't know if I'd have that connection to grandkids that I would to my own kids.
But it's your kids' kids. It's like either way, whatever. Not necessarily.
I don't know. I mean, I've never had kids, so I don't know if I'd even have a connection to them.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not saying it's just grandkids either, but I mean, life is crazy, One of the things that my cousin said a long time ago was like, because he was 25 and he had a son, a daughter, a wife, and a house, and he was like, yeah, I don't know what the fuck now, it's like that's basically it. You can kind of like grow in your career and do whatever other kind of things and all that kind of stuff, but not really. It's kind of the way that I talked about before about kind of viewing my life as this thing of check marks of like, I need to go to high school, I need to go to college, I need to get a job, I need to do this, I need to whatever, and then I'll be happy. But it's like you're kind of looking at it like that, like, oh, I need to have a job, I need to have a certain amount of kids, I need to do this, and then so for you it's like I need to hit 60 and then I'll die. But I mean, it's kind of a gamble, because like, what if you hit 60 and your life gets super awesome? Then having lived your whole mindset thinking that you're going to die at 60 is like maybe not good or maybe super good. I don't actually know. But
I mean, I don't know. Maybe on one hand, you might be right. On the other hand, if I do make it to 60, but I live like I was going to die at 60, maybe when I'm 60, I'll have some fun stories to tell.
Yeah, but would you...
Like Ernest Hemingway or whatever.
Yeah, then you
Ran
go...
with the bulls, hunted in Africa, climbed a mountain.
Then you go write books for 10 years and then die alone in a cabin. And then they find you like 4 days later. Like, that's how you should go out. That sounds cool.
I would never want to be found 4 days later. That's all. That's
super gross.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, it's like I realized somewhat recently that I really enjoy self-improvement. Like, I basically view myself as like just a process that's trying to get better at being a person.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's hard to improve when you're 60.
Well, it's hard. You don't improve once you've peaked anyway. I mean, you're talking about like physical.
Exactly, that's what I mean.
So, but then by that logic, you should end it at 36 or whatever. Well,
that's your physical peak, but your mental peak could come later.
Sure, but I think living your life with that end in mind is only gonna detract from like the actual life that you're living. It's like, die when you die, like maybe you'll die at 50 and then you'll be like super fucking bummed out about it, but at least your life was cool. I missed
those last 10 years. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I think if I live past 60, it's not like I'm not gonna like do myself in probably, but I'm also I'm also not gonna live my life like I'm preparing to be 100. Like I'm not like, oh, you have to be careful about my knees and my hearing and my eyeballs. I'm like, I need to be able to run miles and miles and miles and climb mountains and hike and write programming stuff and like eat ice cream or whatever. Like I want to do all the stuff that I like to do, regardless of what that's gonna do to me like in 60 years, you know?
Yeah, but then it would be nice to have the option where it's like, oh, well, I'm 59 and I actually am realizing that life is cool and I want to keep it going for another 10 years or so. But actually, my heart has like a hole in it because I've been smoking meth for the past 10 years because I've been thinking I was going to live until 60 or whatever. And you can't. Like, I want the option to live until like 100. That'd be great. That'd be ideal to have the option to. Maybe when I'm like 98, I'll be like, actually, I'm just going to bed forever.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't enjoy the idea of getting old.
Yeah, but that's just right now, though.
I don't want to get old.
That's just the way that you're thinking right now. I don't know. I don't know how you think. I'm not you, but being old sounds fucking rad. I want to be old already. Like I want to stop living I want to stop doing work and shit. I just want to sit down like on a porch for like maybe 30 years.
I don't want to do that. But also, like, do you remember that lady that we met when we went hiking? That like really old lady who was like, yeah, I hiked Yosemite.
Yeah.
Or Yellowstone. I want to do that stuff. Like, I want to continue to be able to do that, but I know at like 60 it becomes harder, and every year after that it's just going to get harder and harder to be able to continue to do that until like you physically cannot anymore.
Doesn't that make it impressive? At that point
it's just like, ugh. It is impressive, but I mean at 60 who am I trying to impress? I mean, like, if I'm capable of doing it, I'm not really impressing myself, and if I'm not capable of doing it, I'm just disappointing myself.
But that's the whole thing. I mean, who are you trying to impress by doing anything well in the first place? The whole point is not that it's like to prove something to anybody. It's just doing something that was hard. And when you're 60, pooping by yourself is hard or whatever. Maybe, I don't know, maybe not 60, maybe like 90. But you know what I mean? That's like impressive that you could do this by yourself. Like on some level, that's an accomplishment for you.
I guess. I don't know. Everyone else seems to think that getting old is a good thing, and I'm like, I kind of don't want to get old.
If you die at like 30, I'm gonna be so fucking mad.
Some of the things on my bucket list may or may not kill me. I'll tell you that much.
One of your bucket list items should be reach at least 50 years old.
I want to be old enough so that if you have kids, I can be a godfather. And I'll be the cool godfather or uncle. You don't have to make me a godfather because I'm not. I wasn't dunked in water or whatever. I don't actually remember what goes into a baptism.
Well, a baptism is when they do the water on you, and then the godfather is the one that dunks, I think. But yeah, I want you to be old enough to the point where my kids learn that you're not really their uncle. Like I want them to think you for like at least 15 years.
This whole time they've just referred to me as Uncle Yazeed. Then at some point in time they're like, wait a second, they're not related.
I learned that about my mom and my tia, whatever, like maybe 6-7 years ago, that she is just her friend.
Wait, what? Really?
Yeah. It's not. Oh my god. Yeah, I mean, it's not no one that I like really was close to, whatever, but someone I always just referred to as the person is not my tia. So yeah.
All right. Listen, I'll do everything in my power to live that long. I'll tell you that. Everything in my power to live that long. Nah, man. But some of the stuff on my bucket list is like go to like the northern territories of Canada, like where no one really goes, where there's like polar bears, and you have to carry a gun that can put down a polar bear, and like you got to be on the lookout for stuff like mountain lions and bears and wolves.
Yeah. Well, let that be the last thing. And it's like, well, Yazeed went out fighting a polar bear and a mountain lion, and he had a fucking bazooka in one hand and a shotgun in the other. He Rambo'd that shit, and he still went out like a king. It was a heart attack that did him in.
Listen, imagine if I made it to 60 but did go do the Northern Territories stuff. Like, at 60, I'd be sitting around somewhere and be like, oh, Yazeed, tell us a little bit about your life. And I'd be like, well, one time I went out into the northern territories of Canada, and they'll be like, the what? And I'm like, yeah, before the glaciers melted, Canada used to have a bunch of land up there that was like frozen half the year. Yeah. They're like, what's frozen? And I'll be like, and there were polar bears. They'd be like, what bears? Like, you know the Coca-Cola bear? It's like that, but vicious.
Okay, so imagine you live this life, right? It's a tremendous life of great personal accomplishments. You have stories to tell that people that inspire people. The world ends, information's gone, your story is gone. Are you okay with this?
Yes.
You're a different
I do things
person
for myself, not for other people. I don't. This is like a weird position to take because I try to be a nice person and a good friend, but ultimately I do all those things because I like to do those things.
I get that.
And if at any point in time I stopped liking having friends, I think I would just stop being a good friend. But luckily I don't see that happening because that's a very lonely life.